All right, everybody, how are we doing today? Now, we've got a special episode here. This is episode 100 of the Flying Fluffy Sports podcast. And no,
Congratulations.
thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, I've raised my glass of water. And there you go. Normally, this podcast is for YouTube members and Patreon exclusive members, but since it's episode 100 and Nick is here joining me today, I figured we're just gonna chat. We're just gonna talk some hockey, talk some Panthers, and we'll just make this one public. Now, I don't. If you've watched my channel, you guys know I do not normally like pump any videos that I put out. Like I put it out and that's it. I don't normally go and tell you need to watch a video, but Nick was on the members podcast last week with me, and I put a clip out on the regular public channel, and it hasn't had a lot of views. If you did not see that video, you want to watch that video. If you're interested in the true firsthand account of at least part of the reason why and how the Florida Panthers were born, Nick tells the story. He was there, literally there. So yeah, if you're a Panther fan, that's not. I know it's summer and everything like that, but you definitely want to catch that video. I put it out last week. So, all right, now the other things I talked about on that show were Nick and I are going to be doing a a series. Now, Stu and I are still doing our stuff, but Nick and I are going to start something next year as well, where we kind of go over some of the goals and some of the plays. And it might not always be Panther stuff. If the Panthers don't play and something happens in the NHL that catches both of our eyes, Nick's got a pretty good high hockey IQ. He's played. He knows things a little bit from a more of a coach's perspective, so to speak. And I'll let him tell you a little bit about that. So we're going to be doing that once the season starts. So he's going to be joining me on the podcast as much as I can, at least once a week for now, to get everybody used to him and to get him used to being on camera. I had to tell him to wear clothes. I don't understand. Like he showed up naked and he had a fedora on. He said, "No, Nick, serious. I know it's member. It's not that kind of membership. You know what I?"
I live in a nudist colony. I'm sorry.
So just real quick, give everybody a short introduction to yourself. I know we did that on the members only, but just truncate it for everybody here, so they know that you know your stuff.
All right. I'm Nick. Just people know me as True, probably, or True World. Played hockey growing up in South Florida, all the way probably through my 20s. Did a little bit of coaching for some junior stuff, and was part of the junior league that went to Wayne Heisinger's office and begged him for a team, and he brought the team to South Florida Panthers, and I've been a fan ever since. I was originally a Bruins fan growing up, and then we
We won't
finally
hold
got a
that
team.
against you.
Yeah, uh, yeah, and then I don't even want to say it, but I actually became a little bit of a Vegas fan before we took it to the Stanley Cup. But yeah, I've been following the channel for years now. Uh, Eric's a great guy, and I think we've got some good chemistry we can bring for you guys.
Yeah, and one thing that Nick and I have communicated about is I will mention something in one of my videos or one of the recaps or like when I started doing those breakdowns, and I'm just a lay person when it comes to hockey, right? I'm just looking at it from a fan's perspective, from my perspective, and I'll kind of say this looks like this is what was happening or what should have happened, and he'll text me and be like, yeah, this is the name of the play. And this is you're right. This is what should be happening. So it's kind of one of those things where I kind of half-ass know what I'm talking about without having any idea with what I'm talking about. So I
You
I
do a good
think
job.
I appreciate that. I think it'll work. Now, the Panthers, man. I'm just gonna pick your brain a little bit. Just talk, answer the question however you want to answer it.
Well, go for it.
the the spot that we're in, and I do want to get into how we played and everything like that, but the spot that we're in now, if you're Bill Zito, man, you've got, to me, what I keep calling it is like this giant Jenga, right? And you've got the extensions that we need to give out. You've got you don't know how much money each one of these guys is going to want. You've got the injuries, right? You've
Mm-hmm.
got and then we're also going to get into the Bob and the Spencer Knight thing. But if you're Zito right now, how panicked are you? And or like what do you think the best way forward for us, especially when you look at like Ekblad and Montour being out?
I mean, from what I've seen, he's kind of calm about everything,
Yeah,
um, from his perspective. And like normally in the draft, he said you want to try and pick the best player available every pick. Um, I saw we got two defensemen, I believe, so far. Albert Wickman
yeah.
and Luke Kaufman. Coughlin? Did I
I
pronounce that
I
correctly?
think you got that right. Yeah, I did something on the first guy yesterday, but I'll catch up on the rest of the guys over the weekend.
So I'm thinking, I mean, I don't know if they'll be ready, but
Hmm.
we're gonna have to pull somebody up in the defense for first, hopefully won't be that long, but it's gonna probably be at least a couple months, I would think.
Well, and yeah, and that's where that whole Jenga tower comes into play
Yeah.
because a lot of us might just scream, just put Carlson in, right?
Yeah.
He played well, but he's an RFA, so he needs a
Yeah.
contract too,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's
Yeah.
just like all of the pieces, and then of course there's been the rumors, and rumors this time of year, you take them with 2 grains of salt, right?
Yeah.
But what I've looked at, the one that strikes me the most is Duke going to Calgary for Hannafin. Um, I talked about this yesterday. I'm curious what your opinion is. I know it sounds easy, right? But then again, I said it last year and then it happened. So what I tweeted yesterday was Duke for Hannafin, and then you go get Tyler Pertuzzi, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me,
Yeah.
that kind of would solidify the top nine, and then that would allow you to focus on what you're going to need to do on defense. But what do you think he's going to do? Do you think he's going to just try to move some of our guys up, or because whoever you plug into those holes when they come back, you can't have paid them a ton of money because then we won't have space.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big cluster
Yeah,
fudge.
yeah,
uh I mean, Duke, I love him, but it's obvious that his game is not the same. It's coming back, or it was coming back, and
right.
hopefully, if we still have him next season, it will continue to progress. Um, I think that he loves playing down here, so
Yeah,
if he has any control over it, I'm sure he would love to stay here. Um, as far as the defense, I mean, yeah, you're gonna have to do something with Lucas Carlson. Um, because it's like we have to deal with Ekblad's injuries every season in the beginning of the season most of the
right,
time.
right.
And I kind of just look at it as he's, like I say, he's damaged goods, and he does more wrong things than good things to me in my eyes. um Montour, he's a roamer. If he
Right.
can get back when he wants to roam, then do it, man. But if you're not going to get back, or Maurice isn't going to get it in these guys' heads that when you see Montour going up, somebody has got to drop back,
Right.
and if you see Ekblad going anywhere past the red line,
Yeah.
somebody better drop back because he's not
Right.
going to get back fast enough. I
Yep.
mean, God bless him, but yeah, I know that his game would be so much better if he wasn't sewn together, basically. I
Yeah.
mean,
No. I mean, at this point, I mean, and I'm not saying this to be critical of the guy. I mean, the guy's body is just abandoning him.
yeah.
I mean, I know I thought he was playing some of his best hockey of the year, especially in against Toronto and Carolina,
Hmm.
and the dude had a broken foot
Yeah, I don't
and
understand that.
and a shoulder, right? So
I mean, it can't
and
be a bad break in your foot. I mean, how could you skate? I mean, they have so much
right,
medicine and stuff these days,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Who
yeah.
knows?
Which brings me to my next question. I've been talking about this a little bit, and I want to get your opinion.
Hmm.
Is it just me, or because I mean September 25th is the first preseason game.
Yeah.
Is it just me, or does that seem like a really short period of time for Kachuk to heal his sternum and get ready to play a whole nother season? Like
Yeah.
what I was talking about yesterday was that whenever Kachuk says he's ready, that they say, okay, now you need to sit for 6 more weeks because
Yeah.
he's going to want to be out there, and I'm concerned about how look we're both older guys that have had injuries, right? If you
Mhm.
don't let an injury properly heal, next thing you know you've got arthritis in that shoulder and you're on the downside. So
100%.
what do you think?
Uh, I mean, as soon as he's feeling able to skate, I don't know if I would even have him touching a puck for a while. I mean, I would keep his skating, if he's skating good, I would keep his skating skills
Right,
fresh. Have him in a yellow jersey or a red jersey, a non-contact jersey, obviously.
right.
And from what I've seen out of everything I've looked into, it's almost something that only happens when you get into like a severe car accident. So,
Really?
he basically had a car accident in the middle of the ice there
Oh, jeez.
with my favorite
Yeah,
Vegas player there,
yeah. What colas are, and it's so
Polazar.
strange. I mean, it's some people were saying it was kind of karma, but the way he talked about it, you know, when he hit Eichel coming over the middle, he even said, "Hey, look, even me, if I come over the middle with my head down, I'm gonna get smacked," and that's exactly what happened, man. So
First thing you learn in Pee Wee hockey,
yeah,
keep your head up. If you
keep
go
your
back
head
in
up.
that episode that I just did, if you look at those pictures and I have the puck, you
Right?
look where my head is.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
looking down at the puck.
Right.
And that was even a no contact game. So I could have been looking down at the puck, especially with the other guys I was playing against too.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
I mean, in the NHL, you can't put your head down. I
No.
mean, it just takes a split
Yeah.
second.
Yep. Yep. And unfortunately, it went the way it went. So turning now to how the team played, I want to talk about and get your opinion on just how things progressed. Um, One thing that I kept saying, and I haven't talked with you about this, so I'm asking if you've kind of felt the same way. In the beginning of the season, and then as we started to get better, but especially in the beginning of the season, what I kept saying that I was seeing, again, from my perspective, was that the forwards were not coming back enough in the system.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if you were getting the same thing in the beginning of the year.
I mean, I was screaming at my TV all year long with all kinds of stuff I saw. But yeah, that was one of the things, definitely. Like I just said, when the defensemen go start pinching or start roaming, somebody has got to automatically not even think about it, automatically drop back.
Right.
And Forsling's fast. He likes to go up there, and I almost think that he wants to do more, but he knows that he's got to get back to cover his spot.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
Forsling definitely strikes me as somebody who's got the potential to do more, but he's playing this position smart,
yeah, yeah,
as
yeah,
opposed to some of the guys that we've had here in the past.
yeah.
Now, how does that work for a hockey player? I mean, in terms of you getting into training camp, and Maurice is screaming at him, "You guys got to get back! You guys got to get back!" Right? But as we
Hopefully,
saw, they didn't really figure it out until about Game 5 in Boston. They,
Boston.
they they started showing surges and everything like that. But what is it? What happens in the hockey player's mind that's the barrier between the coach is telling us to get back and that moment where they go, "Oh, that's what he means."
Well, I hope at that level that they're not doing that, but who knows? I mean, it's a simple thing. I always refer back to my father because my father taught me everything about hockey, but he did a lot of off ice stuff with us. Kind of, I'm sure, in the NHL they spend hours off ice in a room staring at a screen and going
Yeah,
over videos. But we were watching old CCM VHS tapes, for those of you that don't know, they're about this big, and they went into a machine, and you push play, and you could rewind and fast forward. And you better have that video brought back to Blockbuster, or else you would get charged. So
Oh,
yeah, we would watch CCM plays and formations, a lot of videotape off ice.
right,
And one of the main things that you learn at a young age, or whenever you start playing, is when the guys face off, you got your three forwards, and then you got your two defensemen. That should move everywhere along the ice. You
right,
know, of course, people are gonna pinch, and people are gonna roam, and people are gonna, try and one on one, or it's
right,
gonna
right,
break up a little bit, but it always has to be in that 3-2.
right,
You know, unless
right, right,
you're
right,
penalty kill or something else, then that's a whole nother thing. When we'll get into that. Um, but it should be just an instinct thing. When you drink water, you swallow the water. You don't
right,
think
right,
about
right,
it; it just happens.
right,
So it should be automatic when that formation, 3-2. When someone comes in any spot, someone's got to move over or move back. Even with the wings, even with the forwards, it's way more important with the defense. But you just got to stay in that 3-2 formation.
right, right. So, as an aside, it's interesting you mentioned watching the film. I have, I don't even know how we would get this to happen, but I know for football, and I've wanted this for a while for hockey. For football, they have the All 22 film where you can sign up for a monthly subscription and you get the coach's film. So
Oh,
you
cool.
can break things down and watch everything that was happening during a specific play. I
Very cool.
would kill if they
Oh,
would do
yeah.
that for hockey, man.
Yeah.
Oh man, I would just be married to the laptop. We'd have
Yeah.
8 videos out a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't give me the coach's film. You see how much I'm able to bitch about just from watching on TV?
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
I tell my wife all the time, if they would just give me one or two practices with those
Right.
guys to
Yeah,
just go
yeah.
out there and lose my voice screaming the stuff I want to yell.
Right, right,
Oh man.
right.
Or if I could just be a fly on the wall in that dressing room.
Yeah, man. God forbid they give me the coach's film. If you coasted for 2.5 seconds, I'll catch it. I'll
Oh
catch
yeah.
it, man. You
Yeah.
know?
I mean,
Yep.
some of the coaches I used to play for, if we weren't doing, if we weren't pushing all
Right.
practice or all game, there were some major games I played in where, we were kind of slacking a little bit.
Yeah.
And when we went to go off the ice after the third period, my coach, whoever it was at the time, most of the time my father,
Right.
um, he would say, everybody's staying out on the ice. We're doing suicides.
Oh wow.
And we'd stay out on the ice for another 30 or 40 minutes.
Right.
And, sometimes it would be one or two players that would screw up.
Yeah.
So everybody would be out there doing suicides for one or two players. And,
Right. Right. Right.
yeah, that guy usually got some
Yeah.
jock straps flung
Oh
at him after
jeez.
the suicides.
Yeah.
Not fun.
Not fun. That's what I was gonna say. Not fun.
But it does develop you good, though. It does
Yeah.
benefit you.
Yeah, and I mean, apparently that's kind of what Maurice did to him in the beginning of
Yeah.
of the. Now, I'm curious if, in your opinion, I mean, I was warned about this by a couple of Winnipeg Jets fans when we first got Maurice, and they said specifically that Maurice is going to grind the players into the ground. Every once in a while, they're going to go on a run, but they'll never finish because their bodies are going to be so beaten to crap after the season and the way he puts them through that they will never finish. Now that was told to me by two Winnipeg Jet fans before the season started. So I
Before.
just kind of said, well, I guess we'll see what happens. And then that's exactly kind of what happened.
Yeah.
How much of a concern for you is that? And as the second part to that, to me, I would think that one solution to that would be to learn how to be a pain in the ass for checking without just having to hit everything that moves at the same time.
Uh, Well, I mean, forechecking, we really did well with our forechecking, especially the latter parts of the year.
Right.
Um, we want to run what's called a dog, fox, hawk
Okay.
forecheck, and I could draw it on. I'm gonna have my board when we start
Yeah.
doing this,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but it's basically puck goes in the corner. Uh, Other teams, most likely defenseman, is going to go in the corner to retrieve the puck. So you're going to send what they call your dog in,
Right.
attacking the guy. Then you're going to have a fox, which is going to be 5 to 8 feet away.
Right.
And then you're going to have your hawk, who's kind of back here towards the blue line,
Right.
because he's going to pass up the boards, pass through the middle, which we were doing a lot
Yeah.
that screwed us up in the season.
Yeah.
Um, but another thing I saw is sending one guy in is good, of course. Sending two guys in is what you want to do. But when we send three guys in, I start screaming at my television, and Dee Dee, my wife, she even knows now. They're sending three in. They're sending three in because when you send three in, there's going to be somebody open. There's
Right.
going to be a guy out of position,
Right.
and you're going to have most likely three forwards back checking all over on one side of the ice.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
it's they gotta tighten some of this stuff up, and
Right.
that's one of the things with their forecheck they've got to tighten up.
And
And then,
especially with our
mhm,
defense, because at least 2/3 of it is not exactly fast.
right,
Right.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know.
we definitely
Um.
need to work on our speed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's been an issue. So.
The whole team,
What's that?
the whole team. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. No. We don't have any. I mean, Duke was the fastest guy.
I think Forsling is probably faster than Duke now.
Probably now. Yeah. 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 Absolutely. But in terms of our forward speed, I mean, Barkov never looks like he's even skating hard because and I don't
He's
mean that like he's not skating hard. He's just so big and smooth that it just doesn't even look
he's
like
a power
he's.
skater.
Yeah.
Long, hard strides. He gets his speed on his crossovers.
Right.
A lot of
Right.
people don't know that, but when you're doing your crossovers, that's when you gain a lot of speed if you're doing them correctly.
Yeah.
Um, I hope Maurice is running these guys through tons of power skating drills because that's really going to benefit them.
Right. So I'm curious in your opinion, what was the difference, especially in the forecheck, and what was the difference? Was it what we were doing and what they were doing between what we did in Toronto, the end of Boston, but mainly Toronto and Carolina versus whatever that was in Vegas? Setting aside the fact that we had guys that were injured, I can't quite blame it all on that. So I'm curious what you think might have happened.
In my opinion, I think that we weren't supposed to be there, and I'm getting really sick of hearing, "Oh, if Pittsburgh would have won, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Da, da,
Right.
da. Well, Pittsburgh didn't win.
Right.
And, you know, honestly, I didn't think we were going to make it past Boston. I was happy that we got in, and, look where we got. I mean, that's unbelievable how, what we did. I mean, we didn't
Right.
win the cup, but nobody thought we were going to do what we did. And,
Right.
yeah, but what was your original question
Yeah,
again?
in terms
I
of the
got
difference
sidetracked.
between how they were playing specifically against like Toronto and Carolina versus what happened
Okay.
in Vegas. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I got sidetracked.
That's okay.
Uh, I think what happened is, so since we did what nobody expected us to do, as I think Chucky said that, um, I think their heads just started to get a little big,
Really, you think?
and well, I mean, once we swept Carolina, and
Right.
then we had that little break,
Right,
I
right,
think they
right.
kind of leaned back and said, "Man, we're doing this easy. We got this, man."
Right.
And maybe their heads swell a little bit, and then they went in to Vegas, with injuries, with the little bit of a break, and I think their heads were a little swole, and you can't
Interesting.
have that, especially going in the Stanley Cup final.
Right, right. Now, in terms of on the ice, how do you think that translated to the difference in what we were doing?
Well, I mean, injuries. I mean, I was wondering why they were playing just slacking everywhere. We were not jumping on pucks.
Right, right,
When we were taking the body, it just didn't. We weren't really finishing our checks. There was a couple times where we were, but it just looked like a completely different team when we went from Carolina
right,
to the Vegas series.
right, right. Yeah, no, I know. I mean, I hate blaming it on the injuries. So look, Vegas was
Yeah,
the better
yeah,
team, you know what I mean? And the
yeah.
other part to that was, Aiden Hill just comes out of nowhere. Leave it
Yeah,
to
yeah.
us to I mean, it we've always said that we always well, one thing if you've been a Panther fan for a long time, is that maybe not so much in the last year or two, but in our previous history, if a team came into a game and they had to use this is their third goaltender and it's his first start ever, or he's never that we're getting shut out. we're getting goalied every time, man, for a lot of years,
Yeah.
and so it just kind of stands to reason that we would, Aiden Hill would kind of come out of nowhere there. I mean, he had played the other series, obviously, with them. And then Bob just wasn't. It was kind of weird because I thought the time off would give us some more physical rest, especially for Bob. But he looked beat in that series, even
Yeah.
after the rest. And
You got to
look,
remember the goalie is on the ice for 60 minutes
right,
and he's
right,
got 60 pounds of pads on.
right. Is it really?
So,
Does it really weigh that much?
well, I mean, nowadays everything is made so light, you
Right,
know. But I mean, if
right,
you put it all on a scale, I mean, it's got to, I mean, with skates and helmet and everything, stick,
right, right,
everything,
right. Yeah, I mean
it's
maybe
not
not
light,
60, but it's not light. No, I get
And the goalie
and
pads have gotten ridiculously huge.
yeah,
I mean, if you go back and look at Beezer's pads, I mean,
right.
half the size of the pads now. And
Yeah,
now I'm
yeah, yeah.
seeing in the draft that the goalies are getting bigger and the players are getting smaller. So
Yeah,
the game's changing a lot quickly.
yeah, no, it's weird. In fact, there was that 6'6" goalie that got taken a few picks before we took Sachin in the second round, and George
Was it
Richards
this?
alluded to the idea that he said this pick had the Panthers written all over it. So he kind of
Yeah,
alluded to the idea that we might have taken that guy, which brings me to my next question. And to me, one of the most important positions on this team that's not getting a lot of thought about is backup goalie. And because we don't know what the deal was with Spencer Knight, we're left as fans. Obviously, the team knows, but as fans, we're kind of left in the dark. Now, the most the thing that I've seen most people assuming is that it was some sort of mental health issue. Okay,
hmm,
so now in terms of us as the fans, we don't know what we have at backup goaltender because now we have a $4.5 million backup, which is starters money. I mean, Omar makes $5 million, right?
yeah,
It's crazy. So we've given him this money, and now based off of last year, he's a question mark. So I'm all for trying to get Alex Lyon to
definitely.
get to,
Yeah,
to sign him, but of
yeah,
course that's another one of those Jenga pieces with all the moves that we have to make because of the injuries and everything.
yeah.
But just give me your opinion on the Knight thing, and do you think there's a possibility they may just move on from him and try to develop Guzda, who's another big goalie that we have?
In my opinion, I mean, he's just he didn't show very much. I mean, yeah, he went out there and played some good games, but I think Lyon showed um, way more of his ability to come in and a tight game and save it. Um,
Right, right,
Guzda, we haven't seen much of him. I'm sure
right.
he's another big goalie, so that's a plus. Um, I did hear that we drafted another goalie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
His name is Olaf Gifford, if I remember correctly.
You got a better memory than me.
He's from Sweden.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that part.
Yeah, I think we drafted a few Swedes,
Yeah,
which that's a good thing. Great hockey players.
yep.
But yeah, definitely got to figure out something. I mean, if it was in my hands, I would go with Bob and Lion. Um, and just you're gonna have to just get rid of Knight. He's
Yeah, well, that's the tough part is because, like I said, we don't know what the issue was with the assistance program, but any team that's going to trade for him is going to want to know. And
right.
how are you going to trade an unproven young goalie that had mental health issues that has the $4.5 million salary? He's
Yeah,
almost untradeable. I mean, we'd have to basically give him away. We're not going to get any kind of a big return for him at this point because it's a giant unknown there. Um,
I
but
just think that.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just think that for us to deal with everything that we have to deal with all of these problems with the Jenga piece, like you were saying,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
this huge puzzle that we've got to figure out how to put together, um, we don't need to be dealing with somebody's mental issues. God bless them, but we've got other things to set our mind on. And
Well, and it just depends on what it is. Like, it is if it's a that my concern, my biggest concern when I say mental health is that he lost his confidence, right?
yeah,
And
could be in
uh,
anything. Mental
yeah, and
health
who was
is a disease.
right, right. So I'm not saying I want to just discard him, but at the same time, we're going to be depending on someone, and that's what I'm trying to get to. Is look, Bob every year. I mean, most goalies every year they go through their slump. They get a little nicked up. So they get. I mean, Bob was sick twice last year, right?
Hmm.
So we don't know what's
Yeah,
going on there, and he's going to be 35, right?
yeah, yeah.
And on the other hand, he just took us to the cup. And when I say he took us to the cup, I mean those two series against. I mean, he allowed 15 goals against Toronto and Carolina combined. Okay,
That's
so
the
I mean,
Bob.
that's right. So he still obviously can get it done. I haven't seen Guzda play, but when Knight started having his issues, I kind of became a Guzda fan. But that contract that Zito gave him, I mean, it would clear up some space, and you may find another team that's got a willingness to take Knight on and let him and that's the other part to it here with Knight. That this is the part that's not his fault whatsoever, and could be affecting his confidence. Is the kid needs to play,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
mean, he's most young goaltenders are either in the AHL or they're on a bad team and they say, here you go. You've got 3 years to develop because we suck anyway. Let's see what you can do, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Unless, you get the rare ones like Vasilevsky, right? But for most part, the kid needs to play. And that's the hard thing is that with Bob here, he knows he's not going to play. So he probably feels an extraordinarily big amount of pressure when he does get out onto the ice. Like if he knows Bob's going to get 3 games and Knight's going to get one, right? That one game, you've got to work on what you've been working on, try to impress the coaches. I mean, you got a lot to do there.
yeah.
And now, $4.5 million, who knows if that's adding some pressure to him? You
These
know what
are
I mean?
20 years old, 21 years old.
It's 2022, I think
Is it
maybe now.
22?
But I
Yeah.
mean, it's trifle.
It's young. It's young
yeah,
to handle
he's
all that.
for a goalie, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing where I think maybe a trade might be in his interest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Fresh start.
right, go somewhere where he can play, somewhere where he's at
Yeah.
least going to be an even split. You
You know,
know,
you can only practice with your team as a goalie so much before you start going crazy because you're not playing. You know, you got the
right?
same guys shooting at you, and that's it. You
Yeah,
you, you kind of get used to, you know, Jaws shoots like this. Nick does this when he comes in.
right.
Barkey does it. You know them all, and it's
Yeah,
kind of you get to like, okay, where can I get somebody else here to teach? I want to get some other challenges.
right, right.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes I wonder if goalies just sit on the bench and they're like, wow, I'm making all this money, I just sit here. This is great. Or if they're, most of the time they're probably like, gosh, I put in all this work my whole life, got a great contract, and they won't even let me play. So
I think it's that because if you
yeah,
see how Bob
yeah.
reacted when he got back on the ice against Boston,
Oh, he was ready. Yeah,
yeah, I mean he was the dude was ready, right?
yeah, yeah.
And he was, with the exception of Game 6 against Boston, where nobody could stop a beach ball. He was pretty much lights out until, of course, against
Yeah,
Vegas. Yeah,
yeah.
I can no longer call them Vegas now. Now they're Vegas. It's just
Vegas.
it's just
Yeah.
it just is what it is.
Did you see the
So,
trade with Riley Smith?
oh, I'm glad you brought that up. Now, I was kind of a Vegas fan a little bit, not like a fan, but I liked them when they first came out.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
they took Marchessault and Smith, and I was kind of like, it's
yeah.
kind of like if you had a really hot girlfriend and you liked her, but then she's like sharing her nudes. You're like, I don't really want to dump her, but that was a shitty thing to do, right? You know what I mean? That's kind of how I felt about Vegas. Then they
Yeah.
did what they did the flurry. I'm like, that's it. You're on OnlyFans. You're out of here. Okay. So I'm not a fan of Vegas at all. And that was before they whooped our ass in the final. And then all Riley Smith does is get tossed aside by the Panthers because he's an original Vegas Knight, stays with them the whole time, making $5 million, wins the cup with them, and they're like, "Hey, we like this dude Barbashev better, so get the hell out of here, Ollie. Go to a declining Pittsburgh team where you're just gonna waste away the rest of your years."
Yeah.
I'm like, cutthroat, man. And then
Yeah,
they
it is.
immediately gave Barbashev his money, the same $5 million. I
Oh,
mean,
jeez.
like,
I didn't
like,
know
like,
that.
don't even make the contract a little bit different to make it. I mean, it's just like, we got rid of the bitch, so here you can have her room. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah,
like,
there's got to be something to that. I don't
yeah,
know.
they're run by gangsters. That's what it is.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
literal gangsters.
yeah. I mean, you know how I feel about that.
I mean,
It's a
judging
world
by
we live
how,
in.
yeah, judging by their actions. I mean, I don't know, but if they're were run by literal gangsters, I don't think they could be any more gangster than whatever. They just
No, no.
Vegas is cutthroat, man.
Yeah,
So, last thing here, Paul Maurice, after right after the cup, the first thing he was talking about to the media, he was saying, we're gonna have a hard time making the playoffs because all the injuries and everything like that. And then I kind of came out because I was emotional, blah blah blah. I kind of came out with the idea, maybe it'd be better for our bodies if they didn't go on another long run next year and saved it up for the year after. Now, my theory there is that hockey teams, their bodies only get so many long runs in a row. You only get so many chances at it before you start to see like what happened with Tampa last year, okay?
hmm,
So, my theory being if they're going to go on another long run next year, they better effing win it.
yeah,
Because if you go on two long runs in a row, you're starting to get to the point where these guys are going to be beat to crap. So I'm not saying I don't want to make the playoffs. I'm not saying that. I'm saying now I kind of feel like a pressure, like if they get past the first round next year and they start getting into it, they need to win because going back to what those Winnipeg Jets fans told me, the Maurice system will break a body as we've seen. So what do you, I know it's early and it's hard to, I'm not asking really to make predictions,
hmm,
but what do you think our expectations for next year should be if we like the moves that Zito makes? We'll put it that way.
yeah. It's just hard because you don't know too much about what they're gonna do
Right, right, right.
with our RFAs and trades or whatever. But uh, I mean, I would if I was a coach, I would just every year try and go in there and try and win every game.
Right, right, right.
Try at least have that mentality. Um, injuries are gonna hold you back, obviously, but you got to find the best player you can to fill those spots, and
Right.
you know. You got to
You
try
know,
and make the playoffs. I kind of like how Maurice. I think what he was doing was he was kind of like, let's do what we can just to barely stay up in the top of the standings. Just not push 100%, but just enough to stay with the pack and not fall way behind.
right,
And then when we get closer to the playoffs, turn the juice on. I
right.
kind of like that, because then you're not getting too many injuries before you're close to postseason.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that was kind of his plan this year, and then it just didn't go as planned there because remember I did the breakdowns for what I thought was going to happen every 20 games, and the first 20 games I was a point off, and then I thought they were going to keep getting better, and game 20 through like 50 it was not good. So then and I
Yeah.
think I think that's where it hurt us because we were so far behind, right? There's a big difference when you're 10, 8, 12, 10 points behind in January than 2. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And we really had to and we had to mix some of those nights that we were in a must get a point situation, 3 out of 4 on the road and back to back on the road, and then 2 games at home, and then fly out for one on the road, and then the next day we're playing at home. I mean, we had some crazy things.
I don't know how
That
they did
that
it.
yeah, man. So I guess that's my the biggest thing for me is, and this will be the last thing. I have a I'm worried about Kachuk. Like my history is littered with like Dan Marino was Dan Marino, and then he busted the Achilles, and he was
Yeah.
Marino after
I
that. You know
remember.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? With the exception of the opening game against the Patriots. That's a different story when he came back on one leg in the mud. But
Yeah.
other than that, as he progressed, you could tell that injury was affecting him. And that's my concern with Kachuk is that he's going to pull an Ekblad, which is come back too
Ugh.
soon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. I mean, I don't have the power to do it, but if I did have the power to do it, whenever he says he's ready, 6 weeks, just lock his ass in a room. Just
Yeah.
no. Or like you said, you're allowed to skate and
Skate.
put the
Yeah.
no contact jersey on, but I'm not letting you on the ice to play a game.
And a lot of off ice training too.
I'm worried. Yeah, I mean, and something to make sure that I look. I know they have trainers and staff and all of that, but these are still kids that are just going to say whatever they have to say, however they feel. And why I say that is, did you see him when he first got hurt? When he
During the
first
game.
got yeah, when he first got hurt and he went to the bench.
Hmm.
Now I don't remember if it was right. I think it was his right. He went to the bench, and no, but when he was skating around, he was holding his left. But when he went to the bench and the
Yeah, it
trainer
was
was
his left.
asking
Yeah.
him question, he was like, no. He was taking his right arm like this, right? And then the trainer asked him, can you do your left? And he was like, yeah, it's fine. But he didn't move it. But he didn't
I missed
move
it.
it, right? And the trainer just, oh, okay, I guess he's fine, right? He only would move his right arm like that to show, yeah, I'm fine. The shoulder's fine. And then he went like this. He went, yeah, left one's fine too. But he didn't do the back and forth. So that I saw that and like nah, something's not
That's
right.
heart, man. That's heart.
Yeah,
He didn't want
yeah,
to miss anything. And
right,
I
right.
don't
And
know
I,
how he went in the locker room and came back out.
I and looked all in
I heard.
hindsight.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
No, no. Yeah, yeah, well, go ahead. You heard what?
I heard audio. I don't know if you saw, but I heard audio of. I don't know if it was one of the trainers, one of the younger staff behind the bench,
Right.
and he had came and whispered in Maurice's ear, saying that they think it's the collarbone.
Ah,
So I don't know if his injury has anything to do with the collarbone, but originally when he went back in the dressing room, they were,
right.
I don't know if they x-rayed him. I'm sure they probably
Right.
immediately x-rayed him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there's audio of one of the younger guys that works behind the bench, whatever his job is,
Right. Right.
and he's whispering in Maurice's ear that they think it's the collarbone, and I don't know how he came back out, and
I
that
don't.
game he ended up scoring that goal.
Yeah. I mean,
4.3 seconds left.
yeah, that's amazing adrenaline. But then he played game 4, or at least tried to. Right.
Yeah,
I mean, that. I mean, look. What do you do?
Yeah. I mean,
Like, what do you do
yeah.
if you're him? What do you do if you're the coaches? I mean, the only thing you do at that point, and I don't know who you send into that room to ask the question to, but the only thing, if let's put it this way, if we were run by gangsters like Vegas, whoever they're going to send somebody into Patrick Hornquist and say, "Hey, bro, you want to risk another concussion and play in the cup?" Because he was ready to play. He
Oh
he
yeah.
was never planning on playing because of the concussions, but he'd been on the ice practicing and the whole thing. So I think if Florida was run by gangsters like Vegas, Patrick Hornquist would have been out there in his spot, taking
Yeah.
his chances with the rest of his life.
He's retired now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, all right, man. This was good. I appreciate you joining
Yeah,
us.
of course.
And
It's always fun.
look, tomorrow we're going to have the live stream. Live stream's going to start at 11:30. Colin and I are going to be live. Free agency starts at noon. What happens in free agency will dictate how long the live stream is. If the Panthers do something or do a couple of things here and there, then I'm sure we're going to be on longer. I mean, something's going to happen, even if it's just losing guys, right?
Yeah, something's gonna
Like in the first 5 minutes, we're going to hear Lucas Carlson is signed with the Buffalo Sabres. I'm going to pick up my laptop like a freaking frisbee and throw it right out the window. So we'll
Yeah.
see. Or
We'll see.
or maybe last year the first thing we heard was Eetu Luostarinen got re-signed, right? So
Yeah.
that was the first thing that Zito did last year. So maybe this year that's what I want. Lucas Carlson signed to a regular contract to play in the NHL because we need him. We need adequate young defenders that can develop, that we're not going to have to pay a lot of money to, because I mean, how many more injuries can Ekblad? Nobody just keeps saying we're going to get Ekblad back. We're going to get Ekblad back. Well, eventually, right?
He's
The
turning
guy
into
that
a
we
robot.
get back. Yeah. What'd you say?
He's turning into a robot.
Right. I mean,
His
eventually
body
it's
is
just going to be
becoming-
some guy like who skates like Frankenstein on the ice. Like, how many injuries? It's like he had a broken foot, and you're like, oh shit, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, he needs shoulder surgery. It's like, how were you on the ice playing?
Got a rod here,
Right.
pin here.
Right.
When he goes through the metal detectors at the airport, it just goes off. Baby,
That poor dude, man. When he gets to be our age, holy
Oh
shit.
God, help him.
You know what I mean? I mean, seriously, man.
Yeah.
So, all right. So yeah,
All right.
we'll be live tomorrow, and hopefully we'll see how that all. We'll see. We got to do something. We can't do
Yeah.
nothing. That we know. We know there will be moves, and then we'll see if there's any blockbusters. I'm not predicting anything, though. By the way, I'm out of the prediction business. I've closed up shop. So
You're
yeah,
still good at it.
for about a week. All right, everybody. Appreciate the support.
Thanks, everybody. Hit the
Yeah.
like and subscribe.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.
Yep.